The war had ended, but the smoke had not cleared. All across the burning landscape of Dresden IV, broken machines lay twisted like metal bones. Bodies of both alien and human soldiers were scattered across the ash-covered ground. The sky was gray, and a cold wind moved like a ghost over the ruins of battle. Commander Valna, once one of the most feared warriors of the Silari Empire, now lay still. Her dark armor was cracked open, and the lower half of her body refused to move. Her breathing was slow but steady. Her tall, proud frame was stained with blood and dust. She could not feel her legs. Her people had seen her fall. They had scanned her injuries and then turned away. To the Xilari, a warrior who could no longer fight was no longer worthy. She had given everything for their cause, and in return, they had abandoned her without a word. Now she waited for death in silence. But fate had other plans. A crunch of boots over gravel echoed nearby. It wasn't a Xilari. The steps were lighter, uncertain. A human. Corporal Jace Morgan moved carefully through the ruins, his rifle held close, though the war was already over. He had lost his unit in the chaos of retreat. Now he was searching for supplies, maybe survivors. His arm was wrapped in a dirty bandage, and his face was tired. He wasn't expecting to find anyone alive. Then he saw her. At first, he aimed his weapon, but when he saw her condition, armor broken, unarmed, unmoving, he lowered it. He could see she was conscious, her golden eyes watching him sharply. They stared at each other in silence. Jace should have walked away. This was an enemy, a powerful one. The stories of Valena were known even to humans. She had defeated entire squads. But now she couldn't even stand. She expected him to leave her like the others, or maybe finish her off. Instead, Jace did something unexpected. He knelt beside her. "Can you hear me?" he asked slowly, pointing to his mouth, then to her. She gave a small nod, her pride refusing to let her speak first. "You're not gonna last long out here," he said, more to himself than to her, "and I'm not the type to leave someone behind, even if they're one of you." She didn't answer. Her jaw clenched, but her eyes followed him. Jace looked at her injuries. Her spinal brace was shattered, and part of her lower back armor was still hot from plasma fire. He shook his head. "This is going to hurt," he muttered. He grabbed some gear from his bag. Bandages, a pain stopper injection, a few tools. She watched silently as he worked, fixing what he could. His touch was clumsy but careful. She wanted to protest, to shove him away, but her body wouldn't respond. Worse, part of her trusted him. After some time, Jace finished what he could. He took a deep breath and looked around. "We need to move." She looked at him, confused. "I'm not leaving you here," he said. "So you're coming with me." He pulled a tarp from his pack and began tying it into a makeshift sling. Piece by piece, he rigged a drag harness. Valna's pride burned. This was humiliation. A Xilari commander being hauled like cargo by a human soldier. But she had no choice. As Jace lifted her carefully onto the sling, she let out a soft sound of pain, more a growl than a cry. He paused. "Sorry," he said gently. "I'll try not to bump you too much." For hours, he dragged her through the wasteland, step by slow step. His body screamed with every pull. The heat from the burning wrecks made the air hard to breathe. Twice he almost passed out, but every time, he looked back at her face, still proud, still silent, and kept going. Finally, just before sunset, he found an old underground bunker, a relic from an older war. It was half-buried and full of dust, but it had walls, power, and a med station with just enough supplies to help them both. He carried her inside and laid her gently on a stretcher. "You're safe now," he said softly. Valna said nothing, but her eyes followed him as he collapsed in the corner, breathing heavily. She had been prepared to die on the battlefield, alone and forgotten. But now, lying in a strange place with a strange enemy watching over her, something deep inside her began to change. This human, this fragile, stubborn soldier, had done something her own people would not. He stayed. The underground bunker was dark and cold. Dust covered every surface, and the faint hum of old machines filled the silence. But it was safe. For the first time since the battle, Vailna was out of danger. Jace moved slowly, careful not to jostle her too much. He searched the room for anything useful. There was a small med station with healing patches and some medical tools. Nothing fancy, but enough to help for now. Vailna lay quietly on the stretcher. Her sharp eyes studied Jace as he worked. She was still proud, and she didn't like feeling helpless. But the pain in her lower body was constant, reminding her she needed help. Jace looked at her face, tired but strong. "You're tougher than you look," he said, trying to make conversation. She didn't answer, just blinked slowly. Hours passed. Jace cleaned her wounds the best he could, changing the bandages and giving her small doses of pain medicine. Vailna gritted her teeth, refusing to show weakness. At one point, she tried to sit up, but the pain stopped her immediately. Frustration flashed across her face. "Why do you keep helping me?" she finally asked, her voice low but clear. Jace paused. He looked at her honestly. "Because you're not just an enemy. You're a person, and no one deserves to be left behind." She frowned, confused by his kindness. Her people believe the strong survive, and the weak are forgotten. But this human soldier, who should hate her, was different. Days passed in the small bunker. The storm outside raged on, keeping them trapped. Jace used scraps from the bunker to make simple tools: a walking stick, a seat with wheels made from broken parts. He was not a doctor or engineer, but he tried his best. Vailna watched, curious despite herself. She hated to admit it, but she needed help. Slowly, she began to trust him. One evening, as the thunder rolled outside, she looked at Jace and spoke again. "You do not have to stay." Jace shook his head with a tired smile. "I'm staying. I told you, no one gets left behind." Her golden eyes softened for a moment. The alien warrior who faced death without fear was now learning something new: the power of friendship. Even though she could not move her legs, Vailna tried to lift her arms. Jace helped her stretch and move, careful not to hurt her. It was awkward and painful, but she kept trying. Sometimes she would glare at him and say, "I am not a child." "I know," Jace said. "You're a fighter, and fighters don't give up." Vailna wanted to believe that, but inside, she felt trapped, like a bird in a cage. She was used to being strong, proud, and free. Now she was helpless and dependent. One night, as Jace slept in a corner, she stared at the dark ceiling. She thought about her home, her family, and the battle that had broken her body and spirit. She wondered if she would ever walk again. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark of hope grew, because Jace had stayed. The next morning, Jace found old tools and parts in the storage room of the bunker. He began to build a device, a harness to support her body. It was crude, made from metal scraps and wires, but it might help her stand. Vailna watched silently, unsure if she wanted to try. Pride battled with hope inside her. After hours of work, Jace gently helped her into the harness. She felt strange, part machine, part herself. But it was the first time she had felt some strength in her legs. She looked at Jace with surprise. "This might work," he grinned. "Let's try." Slowly, with Jace's help, she stood. The first steps were shaky and painful. She almost fell more than once, but she kept going. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but relief. "I'm standing," she whispered. Jace gave her a thumbs up. "See, told you you're stronger than you think." Vailna smiled faintly. For the first time since the battle, she felt alive. The storm outside had passed. The sun's rays broke through cracks in the bunker walls, warming the cold room. For two enemies who had met in war, A fragile friendship was growing in the quiet shelter. Velna no longer felt completely alone. The days in the bunker slowly turned into weeks. Outside, the world was quiet, but inside, Velna's life was changing in ways she had never expected. Jace woke early each day, always the first to rise. His routine was simple but steady: check the bunker's systems, search for supplies, and most important, help Velna train. Velna's legs were still weak and useless on their own, but with the harness Jace had built, she was learning to trust her body again. "Try to lift your foot," Jace said one morning, his voice gentle but firm. Velna grimaced but focused. With Jace's steady hand supporting her, she managed to raise one foot an inch off the ground. "Good," Jace smiled. "Now the other." She struggled again, muscles trembling. Her pride was wounded, but she was not defeated. In her warrior's heart, she knew she had to fight, just like she had on the battlefield. Each day, Jace invented new exercises, simple movements to strengthen her body. He wasn't a doctor, but his determination made up for what he lacked in skill. Velna found herself respecting him more. He was quiet, steady, and kind. Not a warrior like her, but someone who never gave up. Sometimes, she would watch him silently as he repaired parts of the bunker or fixed the harness. "Why do you keep helping me?" she asked again one afternoon. Jace paused and looked her in the eyes. "Because you're not just an enemy," he said. "You're a person, and people matter." Velna's eyes softened. It was strange to hear words like that from a human. In her culture, only strength mattered. But maybe she had been wrong. As the days passed, Velna's movements grew stronger. She was still far from walking on her own, but she could now stand for longer periods with the harness's support. One afternoon, Jace built a small wheelchair from old parts. It was rough and simple, but it gave Velna freedom to move without Jace's help. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. But not all progress was easy. Some mornings, she woke with pain so sharp it made her want to cry. She would clench her fists and refuse to move. Jace never judged. He simply waited until she was ready, and then helped her take the next step. "Pain means you're healing," he said once. "I know it's hard, but you're getting stronger every day." Velna wanted to believe him. She wanted to be the strong warrior again. One evening, as the bunker lights dimmed, Velna sat in her wheelchair and looked out at the fading sun through a cracked window. "Tell me about your home," she said softly to Jace. He smiled and began to describe Earth: the green forests, blue oceans, cities full of people, and stars shining in the night sky. Velna listened, imagining a place so different from the cold battlefield. "Maybe one day," she said quietly, "I will see your world." Jace looked surprised but pleased. "I'd like that." Their friendship was growing, built on small moments like this, hope shared in a quiet room far from the war. But the world outside was not yet ready to forget the fight. One morning, a faint signal came through the bunker's old radio. It was a human search team, scanning for survivors. Jace's eyes lit up. "Help is coming," he said. Velna felt a mix of relief and fear. If she returned to her people, would they welcome her? Or would she be forgotten forever? For now, she was alive, and with Jace by her side, she was learning to live again. The long road ahead was uncertain, but she was no longer alone. The bunker was quiet except for the soft hum of the old radio. The small device crackled, sending out signals into the empty air, hoping someone was listening. For days, Jace and Velna waited, holding their breaths each time the radio made a noise. Both hoped it would be the human rescue team. But deep inside, Velna felt a growing fear. Her mind drifted back to the battlefield, the place where her life had changed forever. Her people, the Exilari, had seen her broken body and decided she was no longer worth saving. She had expected no rescue, no kindness, no hope from them. Now, here in the dim light of the bunker, she realized something painful. The humans who had been her enemies were the only ones who truly cared. One afternoon, a faint voice came through the radio. It was human. "Survivors, please respond," the voice said. Jace's face lit up. "They found us." Velna wanted to answer, but her voice was weak. Jace took the radio and spoke clearly. "We're here. Need assistance. One injured. Location: Dresden IV, Bunker Alpha 7. The voice replied, "Help is on the way. Hold tight." Velna felt a wave of relief, but it was mixed with fear. "What will happen when they arrive?" she asked quietly. Jace looked at her thoughtful. "They'll take us home." She looked away. "My people left me. Will yours do the same?" Jace shook his head firmly. "No one gets left behind. That's how we do things." Velna closed her eyes, trying to imagine a world where no one was abandoned. That night, sleep was hard to find. Memories of war haunted her, the sound of explosions, the cries of fallen comrades, and the cold silence of being left alone. But Jace stayed awake beside her, keeping watch. In the following days, they talked more. Velna learned about human ways, how they cared for each other, how they did not give up on the weak or injured. She shared stories of her own people, the pride and rules that shaped her life. One afternoon, as Jace helped her practice standing with the harness, a sudden signal broke through the static. This time, it was a different voice, faint and electronic. It was a message from the Scifi command. "Commander Velna, we are aware of your status. Return for medical retrieval or be declared missing." Velna's heart tightened. The message was cold, official, without hope or warmth. She looked at Jace. "They want me to come back. But will they accept me?" Jace helped her steady herself. "You don't have to decide now. We'll face it when the time comes." The message repeated again, but Velna was silent. She thought of the battlefield, of her pride, and of the friends who had turned away. The truth was clear. Her people had abandoned her. But the human soldier who stayed was teaching her something new: hope. The days in the bunker had become a quiet routine. Velna was growing stronger with Jace's help, learning to trust her new body and the strange human beside her. But peace was not meant to last. One afternoon, distant noises echoed outside the bunker's heavy doors. Voices, harsh and angry. Jace tensed, gripping his rifle tightly. "Trouble," he muttered. Velna's sharp eyes scanned the dark entrance. The sounds grew louder, footsteps and low growls of recognition. A group of Scifi scavengers appeared, their faces twisted with cruelty. They were rogue soldiers, the kind who thrived on chaos and theft. When they saw Velna in her harness, lying weak and helpless, they laughed cruelly. "Look at the great commander," one sneered. "Reduced to a broken thing." Jace stepped forward, shielding Velna with his body. "Stay back," he warned. The scavengers ignored him and pushed against the doors, trying to force them open. Velna's heart raced. Her pride burned with anger and shame. She wanted to fight, but her body refused to obey. One scavenger raised a weapon, pointing it at Jace. In that moment, something inside Velna snapped. She tightened her grip on the harness controls, focusing every bit of strength she had. The harness whirred and moved, helping her rise more steadily than before. With a fierce shout, Velna lunged forward, knocking the weapon away just before it fired. The scavengers froze, shocked to see the once proud commander standing and fighting back. Jace quickly followed, firing warning shots into the air. "We don't want to fight," he said, "but we will defend ourselves." Velna felt a surge of power she hadn't felt since before the injury. The harness gave her support, and her warrior spirit gave her courage. Together, she and Jace pushed the scavengers back. Their combined strength and determination were enough to force the rogues to retreat, growling threats as they disappeared into the shadows. After the doors closed, Velna sank back into her seat, exhausted but victorious. "I am not broken," she said quietly, more to herself than to Jace. "You never were," Jace replied, smiling warmly. That night, as the bunker settled into silence, Velna stared at the ceiling. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope that she could be more than her injury. With Jace by her side, she was learning that strength was not just about the body. It was about heart and will. Tomorrow, the rescue team was still expected to arrive. But Velna knew that whatever happened next, she would face it with courage, because she was not alone. The sound of engines echoed faintly above the rocky hills. Through the small bunker window, Jace and Velna spotted the rescue dropship descending slowly toward them. After weeks of waiting, relief filled the air. Jace moved quickly to prepare Velna for evacuation. The harness was adjusted, bandages replaced, and medical packs gathered. Velna felt a mixture of hope and fear. Leaving the bunker meant returning to a world she no longer knew, a world where her own people had left her behind. The dropship touched down with a soft thud, and soldiers in clean uniforms rushed inside. Their faces showed surprise and concern as they saw Velna's condition. "Commander Velna," one officer said respectfully, "we have been sent to bring you home." Velna looked at Jace, searching for reassurance. He nodded. "You earned this," he said simply. But as the soldiers prepared to lift her onto the ship, Velna hesitated. Her heart was torn between two worlds, the pride of her alien people and the unexpected kindness she had found among humans. The human commander stepped forward. "You don't have to go back if you don't want to," he said kindly. Velna looked around the room, then at Jace. "Will you come with me?" she asked softly. Jace smiled. "I'm not leaving you." The human commander nodded in agreement. "Then you are both coming." With care and respect, the soldiers lifted Velna and Jace into the dropship. As the ship rose, Velna took one last look at the battlefield below, a place of pain, loss, and unexpected friendship. Inside the dropship, the atmosphere was calm, but filled with hope. Medical officers began examining Velna, and Jace stayed close, holding her hand. "Thank you," Velna whispered to him. Jace squeezed her hand gently. "We're just getting started." The journey back to Earth was long, but Velna's thoughts were focused on the future. With the help she had found, she would rebuild her life, not as a forgotten warrior, but as someone strong in new ways. The bright lights of Earth's medical facility were very different from the dark bunker on Scifi. Velna lay on a wide, soft bed, surrounded by machines that beeped quietly and screens showing her progress. It was strange to be here, so far from her home, her people, and the battlefield where her life had changed forever. But she was alive. More than that, she was healing. Doctors and engineers worked carefully to help her body grow stronger. Advanced technology allowed them to build new cybernetic limbs that would let her move more freely than she had in months. Jace stood beside her every day. He was no longer just a soldier. He was her friend, her partner in this new journey. Velna watched him with quiet gratitude. "I never thought a human would stay with me," she said one morning, her voice soft but steady. Jace smiled. "I never thought I'd meet someone like you." Together, they trained in a special facility designed for rehabilitation. The exercises were hard, pushing Velna beyond what she thought possible. But each small success built her confidence. More than that, Velna learned something new about strength. It was not just in muscles or weapons, but in resilience, the power to rise after falling, to keep fighting even when the world seemed against you. The humans welcomed her in ways she had never expected. She was invited to speak at gatherings, to train new soldiers, and to share her story of courage and hope. Her alien pride was still strong, but it had grown to include something bigger, a hope for unity between species. Jace and Velna became symbols of what could happen when enemies choose to understand each other. Their friendship inspired others to see beyond old battles and old fears. One day, as Velna stood tall on her new legs, she looked out over the city from a tall window. The stars above reminded her of home, but her heart was here, among people who had chosen to stay, to help, and to believe in her. She smiled softly. I am a warrior, she said quietly. Not just because I fight, but because I never gave up. And with Jace beside her, she was ready to face whatever came next, together. The end.